You've probably seen the scene before. A truck stop in the middle of winter. Long rows of trucks parked side by side, snow covering the ground, and a bright hotel sign glowing just across the street. Yet not a single driver gets out. Outside, the temperature has dropped to minus 40 degrees Celsius, cold enough for exposed skin to freeze in less than 10 minutes, and dangerous enough that an unprotected person could lose their life within an hour. The surprising part? Those drivers could check into the hotel whenever they wanted. They have the money, they have the time. No one is forcing them to stay in their trucks, but they don't. And that's the detail most people never stop to think about. Choosing to spend the night inside a metal cab in minus 40-degree weather instead of walking into a warm hotel isn't an act of desperation. It's a deliberate choice. There are 3 layers to this story. First, we'll uncover why drivers prefer to stay in their trucks. Second, we'll look at the technology that keeps them safe and warm in extreme conditions. And finally, we'll reveal a reason that almost nobody sees coming. By the time this video ends, you'll never look at a parked semi-truck the same way again. So why don't drivers simply walk across the street and rent a hotel room? It seems like the obvious solution. Most people assume the answer is money, but that's actually the least important factor. The average long-haul truck driver in the United States earns somewhere between $60,000 and $80,000 a year, while a typical hotel room might cost around $100 a night. Affording it isn't usually the issue. The real reasons are far more practical and much more surprising. The first is size. A standard semi-truck with its trailer measures roughly 25 to 30 meters in length. Hotel parking lots are designed for passenger vehicles, not massive commercial rigs. The entrances are too tight, the spaces are too short, and most hotels simply have nowhere to accommodate a truck of that scale. In many cases, the truck itself determines where the driver spends the night. The second reason is responsibility. A long-haul driver is often transporting around 40,000 pounds of cargo, electronics, groceries, medicine, and countless other products that keep the economy moving. Under federal regulations and freight agreements, the driver is responsible for that load throughout the entire journey, including rest stops and overnight breaks. Leaving a trailer unattended in an unsecured location can violate shipping contracts and, in some situations, even void the cargo insurance. In other words, walking away isn't always an option. But here's the twist that changes the entire story. Even if parking weren't a problem, and even if cargo security wasn't a concern, many experienced drivers would still choose to stay in their trucks. That's because what's inside the cab, especially during the harsh winter months, isn't what most people imagine. And it all begins with a simple fact that almost nobody thinks about. Metal doesn't hold heat well. Steel transfers heat around 400 times faster than wood, which means a truck cab with no heating system running can cool down to the outside temperature in less than 45 minutes. At minus 40 degrees Celsius, you're dealing with more than just discomfort. You're dealing with a real survival challenge. The obvious answer seems simple. Just leave the truck's engine running. After all, the engine generates plenty of heat, so problem solved. Except it isn't. Across many cities in the United States and Canada, anti-idling regulations make it illegal for truck drivers to keep their engines running overnight. These laws were created to cut emissions and improve air quality in populated areas, and violating them can lead to fines of up to $25,000. That leaves drivers facing 2 problems at once: a steel cab that loses heat incredibly fast, and laws that prevent the easiest way of keeping it warm. There's also the cost. Letting a diesel engine idle through the night can burn between $30 and $50 worth of fuel, and sometimes even more. Multiply that by 300 nights on the road, and a driver could spend as much as $15,000 every year just to stay warm. Clearly, a better solution was needed. What engineers came up with is one of the most overlooked pieces of technology found on modern highways. Millions of people pass by it every day without realizing it exists. Hidden inside the frame of most long-haul trucks is a compact unit, roughly the size of a shoebox. It has its own fuel supply connected directly to the truck's diesel tank, its own ignition system, and its own thermostat. It operates completely independently of the main engine, providing heat without the need to idle the truck. And despite being a critical piece of equipment for countless drivers, most people have never even heard of it. It's called a diesel bunk heater, a technology that companies like Webasto and Eberspacher have been producing for decades. Interestingly, these compact heaters were originally developed for military vehicles and aircraft before becoming a standard feature on long-haul trucks operating in harsh winter conditions. But the bunk heater is only part of the story. Some trucks are equipped with something even more impressive, a system that doesn't just keep the cab warm, but transforms it into a fully functional living space, even when temperatures plunge to -40 degrees Celsius. If the bunk heater is the basic solution, the APU is the game changer. APU stands for Auxiliary Power Unit, although the name hardly captures what it can actually do. Think of it as a second engine mounted directly to the truck's frame. It has its own fuel supply, its own cooling system, and its own electrical output, allowing it to operate completely independently from the main engine. That means it can provide heat, generate electricity, and power nearly every system inside the cab, all at the same time. But here's the question almost nobody thinks to ask. What happens when it stops working? Imagine this scenario. It's 3 a.m. You're parked at a rest area in northern Minnesota. Outside, the temperature has dropped to -38 degrees Celsius. The closest truck stop is 40 miles away, and reaching the nearest hotel would require moving the truck. Then you wake up feeling cold. You check the bunk heater control panel. Nothing. You try the APU. It's dead too. In extreme conditions like these, the temperature inside the cab can begin falling by roughly 1 degree every minute. In about 20 minutes, the interior could already be around -15 degrees Celsius. Give it another 40 minutes, and the situation becomes even more dangerous. This isn't some dramatic movie scenario. It's a possibility that every experienced winter driver prepares for. There's one rule they all know. Never step outside in extreme cold without a guaranteed way back into the cab. Because at -40 degrees Celsius, the weather doesn't compromise, wait, or give second chances. The truth is, surviving a winter night in a truck doesn't begin when the temperature drops below freezing. It starts weeks earlier. Before the first major cold front arrives, professional long-haul drivers go through the same winter preparation checklist, making sure they're ready long before they ever need it. And most of it comes down to problems most people never even think about. The first is fuel. At around -20 degrees Celsius, diesel begins to gel. Wax crystals form inside the fuel, slowly clogging filters and fuel lines until the engine, and even the bunk heater, can shut down at the same time. To prevent this, drivers use anti-gel additives, poured directly into the tank before winter temperatures set in. Almost every experienced long-haul driver keeps a bottle on hand. The second is the batteries. Cold weather drains electrical power fast. At -40 degrees Celsius, a truck battery can lose more than half of its capacity, sometimes dropping to under 40% of its normal output. A truck running an APU along with cabin systems overnight can require up to 8 batteries, often twice the standard setup, just to keep everything running through a single night without failure. The third is the tires. Air pressure drops by about 1 psi for every 6 degrees Celsius decrease in temperature. At -40 degrees Celsius, a tire that hasn't been checked can easily lose around 15 pounds per square inch. On icy highways at speed, an underinflated tire isn't just a maintenance issue, it becomes a serious safety risk. And the fourth factor is something as simple as a curtain. Thermal insulated curtains placed between the cab and the sleeper section can cut heat loss by as much as 60%. They cost roughly around $50, yet in -40 degrees Celsius conditions, they can decide whether your heater runs for 4 hours or lasts closer to 8. And here's the part that surprises most people. If you ask a driver who has actually spent a fully prepared winter night inside a cab at -40, whether they would have preferred a hotel room instead, many of them will simply say no. That answer usually catches people off guard. The first reason is silence. At -40 degrees Celsius, everything outside seems to disappear. No traffic noise, no footsteps, no distant conversations, just complete stillness, broken only by the steady hum of a bunk heater working in the background. Many drivers say it's the deepest, most uninterrupted sleep they've ever experienced, a kind of silence you will never find in a roadside hotel along the highway. Extreme conditions don't always create discomfort. Sometimes, they create something unexpectedly peaceful. So next time you see a truck parked in the middle of winter, covered in snow with the cab lights off, it doesn't necessarily mean the driver is struggling. In most cases, they're warm, well-prepared, and sleeping better than you might expect. And now, I want to hear from you. If you're a truck driver, what's the coldest night you've ever spent inside your cab? And would you choose it over a hotel room?